Living with mental illness is particularly difficult in African societies where myths, stigma, and stereotypes abound. World Mental Health Day on October the 10th is intended to create awareness around mental health issues and remove the stigma that can accompany mental health challenges.
Albert has been living with schizophrenia for over 27 years. He is one of the few individuals who do not want their condition to dictate their life, which is why he's consistent with his medication. What worries him now is that sometimes hospitals do not have the medication required for his condition. And for facilities which often have them, patients have to part with a fortune.
But isusu kumba kwedu nemhuri yangu ndinotanga kuona kuti tese tawana mushonga here. Change yasara ndochitengera wana sauti kuti tikwanise kubika. So mukatarisa chikumbiro changu chandinacho muzara nhasi kuhurumende yedu taita dambudziko rekuti mishonga yatinomwa especially line 2 and 3 mishonga iri kunetsa kuwana pachena muzvipatara zvohurumende izvo zvatinotarisirwa kurapwa pachena tichipuwa zvose.
Head of Department at Annex, Fungai Majanda, however, says medication is available, although they sometimes experience shortages.
The medication is available, that is available globally. So we have sort of older medications that is still used. They're just called older generation. And then with the newer generation, which is both of them are used globally. And they are both available at Friday Hospital. But what happens sometimes is maybe there'll be a shortage at a specific visit that a patient has made to the hospital.
Zimbabwe's mental health facilities are currently overflowing. Annex, which is supposed to house at least 54 patients, has over 70 patients, most of which have drug and substance abuse-induced mental illnesses. On the 10th of October annually, World Mental Health Day is commemorated, with this year's commemorations running under the theme, Mental Health is a Human Universal Right. Ethel Musara, a social worker, lamented the gap that exists in mental health service delivery on the continent.
We are in need of, 52% of our population really is in need of social mental health services. So you can actually look at the African statistics as well. It states that in our African countries, most of the countries, when I say most of the countries, it also means our country is being part of the bag and other countries that are in Africa. Most of our governments, they allocate about 1% on their budget to the mental health needs. And now when we have a broader range of a population that is in requiring of mental health social services, and yet when we have 1%, it means there is a major gap, it's a huge gap, and the money is not enough. So that's when you see that now if you go for a psychological session, one full session, it goes around $50 to $60, and it's not enough. It's not everyone who can afford. For our public facilities in Africa, you find out that mental health is not really a priority. So there is a major gap that requires Africa to come together as a whole.
Industrial psychologist Dr. Maureen Mudenda encouraged corporates to invest in employee wellness programs to realize productivity.
People think that mental health belongs in a clinical facility. It's not something that can be brought onto the worksite. But there's no studies that have been done that have been relevant to say that there is a connection. Unless people can see, the managers, the leadership on top, that there's a link between mental health, your performance, your productivity. So once that link has been shown, to show that if we are not there at work, there's a concept in academia called presentism. I can physically be at work, but because of my stresses, because of my anxiety, because of my depression, I am not producing at 100%. I'm probably producing at 20%.
Social worker and academic Dr. Witness Chikoko says there is need for an Afrocentric approach to mental health issues, as most people view it as an alien concept.
Looked at or considered from an Afrocentric perspective, largely on the basis that the Afrocentric perspective speaks to our own realities. In other words, as Africans, as Zimbabweans, we should define what do we mean when we talk about mental health issues. If we're able to define that, we're also even able to come up with local or indigenous models to address issues of mental health. And I know that mental health has been in existence since time immemorial, which means that we have these models.
For ZTN Prime, I'm Faith Nyaude in Harare.